Hey folks, hope you guys are having a good week. Welcome to Bantha Fodder. Bantha Fodder 5, Thou Art Mortal. Yes, your time on this life, the time on this earth, with this life, with this mode of life, is indeed limited. And we are reminded of that from time to time. I've certainly been reminded of it this year. So I'll just share some anecdotes about it. So Ken Parker died. Now, I made an essay about classical guitar and kind of how stuffy classical guitar is. And I mentioned that Ken Parker had cancer and he had a GoFundMe because he was battling cancer. Unfortunately, the day after I wrote that, I guess he died. So he lost that battle. He had made a video shortly before his death explaining that he could no longer work. He no longer had the use of one of his arms because of the treatment and the progress of the disease, and he had kind of left things to an apprentice, and so he was stepping back from building guitars. If you don't know who Ken Parker was, he was probably, I'm going to say he's one of the two most important and innovative guitar builders post Leo Fender. So Leo Fender is like the giant of 20th century guitar building. Not really a player himself, but an absolutely genius talent as far as thinking about how to make an instrument and make it better and make it affordable in a lot of ways. A lot of the reasons that I think guitars are affordable is because of the way that Leo Fender set about developing his guitars, where you make the neck and the body separately and you screw them together, which is actually a really good way to bind a neck and a body, believe it or not. It's a very secure way to bind them together. And it's a little bit easier than gluing them. So you're able to get a guitar relatively inexpensively made. That's pretty cool, especially for electric guitar and all of his other innovations. After Leo Fender and guys maybe like Ted McCarty, who worked for Gibson, you have a lot of variations on that theme until you get to the 80s and you get guys like Ned Steinberger and Ken Parker. And those are the two giants of guitar building, I think, post Leo Fender. And Ken Parker, if you don't know anything about his guitars, he founded the Parker Guitar Company. I have a Parker right here. I'll show it to you in a second. It's an absolutely fantastic guitar. One of the best that I've ever owned. One of the most unique instruments you can buy is the Parker Fly. And he started the Parker Guitar Company up with Larry Fishman, who does Fishman Fluence pickups. And Larry Fishman, of course, at that point specialized in acoustic guitar pickups. And so the guitar has piezo pickups on the saddles that can make the instrument sound like an acoustic guitar or a blend of all of these different tones. It was really fantastic, extremely innovative. There's other things about the guitar that are really special. The fact that it's made with space-age materials. It's made with carbon fiber, which gives it a really, really rigid... the outside, it's actually a wood guitar, but it's made on the outside with carbon fiber, which makes it very rigid. I'll show you the neck joint. There is no neck joint. The neck kind of flows into the body. Really, really incredibly innovative design. You can see it right here behind me. That's my green Parker Fly, my beloved Parker guitar. Eventually, he sold that company because he had overseen every guitar or built it, and that includes this one. Mine's one of the classic ones. There were some revisions in the 2000s. They're still good instruments made in the spirit of what Ken Parker did in the 90s, but I don't know, most of the people I talk to who know it, what they want is the 1990s ones. They want the old pre-refined ones, the ones that Ken made himself or oversaw. They have DiMarzio pickups. So you have really the three giants of electric guitar all collaborating in a way for this. You have Larry DiMarzio, who made the pickups. You have Larry Fishman, who designed the acoustic guitar pickups and the electronics in it. And then you have Ken Parker, who designed the body, designed the neck. It's really interesting. It has stainless steel frets back before anyone did stainless steel frets. It's a really, really cool guitar. After he quit doing the Parker Flies because he was like, we just couldn't find a way to make money on them. People weren't buying them. And I think they were too good for the time. They came out in the 90s when people were starting to buy a lot more like classic looking guitars again. Most of the people I knew in the 90s were buying guitars. They were buying Gibsons and Fenders. They wanted stuff that was like they're heroes from the 60s and 70s, maybe the 80s. There was guys still buying like Jackson guitars and stuff. But you had this resurgence in the 90s of like alternative artists basically playing classic electric guitars. They played Gibsons. Soundgarden, they played Guild and Gibson guitars. You had Nirvana played Fender guitars, right? So you had this kind of resurgence of these classic brands in the 90s. And so this hyper-advanced, space-aged, super shredder, chameleon, do-everything machine didn't have quite as much a market, I think, as people. Now they've come back around. People come back to realize like how good this guitar was. And in fact, I think it's one of the most influential guitar designs that you'll find, because if you're like, well, I want to have all the options of a Parker Fly, but I can't afford one, or I can't get my hands on one. They're just not around. You can get a Music Man JP6 or Music Man Majesty. Has a lot of the same features. It even has a Larry Fishman power bridge in it. So Larry Fishman started making those bridges for other brands. So you can get a lot of the stuff from a Parker Fly, but it's not the same because you can't get that same neck joint. He started making archtop guitars. So he went back and looked at the archtop, which was a really classic design that came out of Gibson at the very turn of the 20th century, but developed into what we think of as the jazz guitar, a big hollow body guitar with an arch top. Technically, a Les Paul is also an arch top guitar. But he went back to making arch tops, which can be a very intensive, labor-intensive task if you're making them as true arch tops. If you're buying, most arch tops are not carved arch tops. They are plywood, like you would have for a drum shell. There's plies of wood, so it's just like a drum shell, and they are laminated into the shape and then given some bracing to keep them nice and rigid. So if you're buying something by like Gretsch, or any of the other kind of hollow body brands, chances are you're not getting a carved archtop guitar the way that Ken would make them. Rather, you're going to be getting a laminate guitar. They still sound good, and they're very rigid, and I think they have a really good acoustic quality, but they're a lot cheaper and easier to make than something where you are going to be carving out that top to make it appropriately thin. So he went to that, and of course he applied his innovative spirit to the arch top as well. And so if you look at some of his arch tops, maybe I can show you a picture of him holding one. They're really quite interesting, because they notice you have a sound hole at the top. You don't need a sound hole in the regular positions. You don't need F holes in a normal place or a central sound hole. In fact, a lot of makers that I've talked to said it's better if the sound hole's away from the strings, because this column of air won't disturb the resonance of the strings. When you have the column of air resonating through the strings, that is going to have a different effect on the tone and the acoustics of the instrument, especially the sustain. It disrupts some of the energy of the strings. But if you put the sound hole away, like I've seen some guitars that have sound holes here, you can even put portholes in the guitar. So this is a thing with classical guitars. They'd put holes in the top bouts of the guitar so that the columns of air can move freely through it, rather than the column going in and out. It's moving kind of through the entire instrument, just like a violin has two F holes. So this is interesting, but there's actually a little adjustment on the neck where you can change the action of the guitar without having to retune it. So you could change the action on the fly by basically turning this little thing, and it brings the whole fingerboard up and down. Let me grab my fly. The Parker Fly has a truss rod in it, but Ken actually did not design it to be used. And he didn't design the guitar to need, so he didn't design the guitar to need a truss rod, but they put one in just so that players would feel more secure, that like they could adjust the neck later on. Contrary to popular belief, you don't always need a truss rod in a guitar. None of my classical guitars have truss rods. None of them. Actually, that's not true. My Robert Godin has a truss rod in it, but I've never had to turn it, and I've never had to adjust the action on it either in any way. So you could adjust the action on this guitar without having to retune it, because it would move the whole thing up and down. Very interesting. So really, really fantastic instruments. They are expensive though. So if you're trying to find one now, expect to spend about $30,000. Now that he's passed away, they may go for more because you can't get him anymore. Now he does have an apprentice that maybe will carry on that tradition, and that would be something I'd be looking forward to. here's the thing, right? His sickness and death came out of left field for me and like really affected me because I just assumed that this guy would go on like building great guitars. He was in his 70s, but he seemed to really be enjoying what he did. He had a huge passion for it. He made a lot of videos on YouTube about his approach to making guitars. And you just didn't expect him to go, I'm really sick with cancer. And like, okay, maybe we can help you. And then to have passed away so quickly after that. I mean, it was like, it's shocking. So, thou art mortal. We're here for a limited time. He had cancer for, I guess, about 2 years. And it made me think that people, when they get bad news or when they get a serious illness like cancer that could potentially end their lives or shorten their lives or requires very brutal treatment in some cases, they have a couple of different reactions. I see kind of 3 reactions from the people I've met who've had serious illness like this in different ways. The other one I thought of was Scott Adams. So Scott is the creator of Dilbert. Here's Dogbert here, right? I'm a big fan of Scott Adams, going back into the 1990s. My late father-in-law, who died this year, this is from his office. So he was a big fan of Dilbert as well. He's continuing to stream pretty much every day. He does a news talk stream and talks about his normal stuff like persuasion and politics and Trump and comedy and all the stuff he does. And he basically has terminal cancer, and he announced that earlier this year. He's like, I wanted to make the announcement when it might go under the radar a little bit because there's lots of people that would be ecstatic for him to be dying. They would say the worst things possible because he had an illness. And that's continued. That's continued for this year. People that really say really profoundly evil things to him because he got ill. They're happy that he got ill, or they think it's somehow poetic that he got ill because he got a vaccine at some point, which doesn't really make any sense, especially if you've like listened to him for any amount of time. But he's continued to work. So Ken Parker was in that category. So the first category is what do people do when they get this sort of mortal news? Well, the first thing that they do is they can just continue doing what they're doing. Scott Adams has always been a big proponent of the process. You do the process and you continue doing the process. And by doing that process, you get those big results. I talked about this a lot in my book, Keys to Prolific Creativity. This is something that is how I more or less live my life. Is I do things every day. You work out every day, you write every day, you practice every day. And then at the end of that are all these products that come out of that. And if you're having trouble doing the thing today, you could just think of the result of it. It's like it's hard to lift weights, but you think about, I'm getting stronger. This is me getting stronger. Or it's hard to diet, right? And it's like me choosing the salad, I'm choosing to be leaner. I'm choosing to not get fatter even, right? I'm choosing something positive that will have a result that I like. And it's the same thing with working. You choose to sit down and write. That is producing a result that you like. I am writing a book. There will be a book. I'm making my goals. I'm realizing my goals. You just go back to the big picture. Steve Vai also talked about this. He had a great little spiel where he talked about, set time aside, practice, and, start by visualizing yourself at the end point. I'm playing this piece beautifully. I'm playing it wonderfully. I'm playing it perfectly. I'm in front of people. They're enjoying it. And that's your vision. And if you have trouble practicing, you just remember, I'm achieving that vision. I'm not just getting my guitar out and making noise. I'm doing that. But I'm just doing the first step of the quest. I'm achieving my goals, but just part of them right now, and that's okay. That also helps you to keep it in line. Like, man, I just wasn't productive today. It's like you were, but maybe you weren't. Maybe you could be more productive, but it wasn't like you did zero, right? You tried to achieve your goals, and maybe the practice session didn't work out today. Maybe you feel like you just didn't improve the way you wanted to, or you didn't have enough time. It's okay, because there's tomorrow. You're going to practice tomorrow. It's not like today's the last day you get to practice. So first category of people who get illness are people who continue with their work. And I feel like that they're people who they have a spiritual connection to their work. They feel like their work is important somehow. I feel that Ken Parker probably thought that his work was really special, and it was. That he was making something that created art. It was art itself. His guitars are art, so he's making art. He's making something that when somebody buys it, they get to enjoy his work on a really deep and profound level. It's a thing you hold in your hand, and it's a thing that you energize to make music, and that those tools are going to be used to make incredible music in the world. That is a really good feeling. That's like a mission, that's a purpose to what you're doing. And I could see that with Scott Adams, is that there's a purpose to what he's doing. It's not just we continue the process, but it's like I'm continuing this process and it's doing things that are good, and I matter, I matter on some level. So the thing that I've noticed from people who have sustained, maybe lived with a really debilitating illness for a long time too. Think of Stephen Hawking, who lived much longer than he was supposed to live with ALS. He had some sort of purpose, right? He was working, he had thoughts, he had things he wanted to do that kind of kept him in the game, kept him living. So I think the psychological part actually matters a lot to your health. I don't think we're a mind in a body, or our mind is separate from our body. We're all one thing. We're a completely integrated set of phenomenons. We're animated. And so our desire to live, our desire to do will help us to continue. Not forever, right? Because our bodies do have limitations and we are still subject to illness. But you'll find that those people who have a purpose tend to live longer. And I can think on the flip side, like my grandfather, he died of pancreatic cancer within a week of diagnosis. He just gave up. That was what my dad said. It was like, yeah, my dad just gave up. He just got the diagnosis. His energy deflated. He had no reason to live, and then he died. Sucks, right? Maybe I feel that a little bit with my father-in-law, is that he just kind of gave up at the end, and that was okay. We'd had this thing where, like, every so often he'd be in the emergency room pretty regularly, and it was like, I know one of these times it's a one-way trip. I know one of these times when the ambulance comes to get him, he won't be coming back, and that was that last time. But he seemed to always be better at putting himself together when he was working, and then when he stopped working, that's when his health started to really decline. It's really interesting. So anyway, that's first category. It's those people who work. Right? This is people who they have a purpose to continue doing it. And so they're already in their purpose and they just continue forward. You just keep doing it. Right? Category 2 are people who basically go into shock and die, like my grandpa presumably did. I wasn't around for him to die. I think I was like a baby at the time. I have no memory of my father's father at all. I don't even know if he ever met me. If he didn't die before me, I'm trying to remember when he died, but he wasn't present in my life. My grandmother was, but I don't really have a good memory of her because she died when I was very little too. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So there's people who just collapse. So there was this thing where Neil Peart's wife got cancer and she just gave up and died really quickly. And that's what Neil said. It's she just gave up. She just was out of it. It's she died of grief. Because I think his daughter had died or something in a terrible accident. So he wrote this book, Get on the Road. He just went and traveled the roads on a motorcycle for a couple of years. So yeah, there's people who just get into shock. They just don't do anything. And if you can imagine the plane starts going down, what do people do? There's people who start saying their prayers because what are they doing? I need to get right with God. I need to finish up this life. I'm going to say my prayers. I'm going to ask for whatever needs to be asked for before we die. There's people who just are in shock and do nothing. And then there's people who, maybe you've heard the joke before. Anyway, the third category is people who embrace hedonism. And I think this category is actually very small because this is more the realm of people who do thought experiments. They think of things. They think of things that are going to be. It's if I had cancer, how would I react? And it's a thought experiment because they don't have cancer. They think, oh, well, I'm going to if I got diagnosed with cancer, I'd go on these trips and I'd see the world, and I'd go sleep with hookers or whatever they're going to do a bunch of blow and hang out with hookers. They imagine they're going to, because they're leaving this life, that they're just going to have as much sensory input that's good as possible before they die. I actually have never met someone who got seriously ill and did anything like that. And I've met people who've had cancer, died of cancer, never met a single person who was like that. This seems to be in the realm of the thought experiment more than reality. But maybe you've met someone that thought like this, where it's like, if I were going to die, you know, if you got that news, like you're really ill and there's a very good chance you'll be dead next year, that may make you realign your priorities to be like, okay, there's certain things I have to get done before I go. Maybe you'd be like, well, I'm just going to stop working and play World of Warcraft until I die. I don't know too many people who do that, because the World of Warcraft is the relief from the work that you're doing, right? Leisure is the opposite of work in some ways. It's our relief from our work. So declaring constant leisure until you die, it's not what most people end up choosing. They start thinking about, okay, well, I need to prepare to serve my family. And I think that might be what Ken was doing, was like, he kept working until he really couldn't work anymore to try to pay off his medical debt. He had huge medical debt, but also, you know, he's an independent craftsman. He's an independent maker, right? When you're an entrepreneur, there's not a lot of safety nets for bad things like this when they happen. You can buy insurance and yada, yada, but there's not a whole lot of safety net for how that's going to happen. Instead, I'm really sorry for the leaf blower. This is my autistic neighbor. So his dad gives him a leaf blower, and he likes to go blow off everybody's yard and driveway. He likes to do that. He likes to take care of people in the neighborhood. So he's leaf blowing right outside. So if you hear this in my microphone, that's nothing that you need to worry about. That's just his thing. But it does disrupt my thought to have like in the middle of it. So yeah, that third category of people who embrace hedonism, and they decide, yeah, I'm gonna play video games until I'm gone. None of those reactions I think are bad, right? To like look at mortality. And I think it can be a good thought experiment. It's like, if I told you, you know, if I could give you back your youth, what would you do? Well, there's so much you could do, you know? If you imagine you're 75 and you're magically transported back into your body today, presuming most of you watching are on the younger side, it's like, what would you do? Well, you would just feel like incredible. You would be like, okay, I'm not in pain anymore. I have energy. I have purpose. I have things in front of me. The fact is, most of what we do in life is planning for the future. It's creating things that are for tomorrow, not for enjoyment of today. But it's okay. I know that sometimes if we're hard workers like I am, I know I will stop occasionally and be like, I'm just working too much. I am not enjoying the fruits of my labor, and I'm not enjoying any leisure whatsoever. And I know if I get into that mode, it's going to be bad. So part of my process is enjoying things every day, playing a game, reading, spending time with my kids. It's all really, really important to me. So I do that every single day. So if I were to get like a terminal diagnosis, it might make me realign a couple things and think about like, what do I really need to get done before I die, and what's going to provide for my family before I die. And, you know, but it may also make me be like, okay, I need to make sure that I have the things which are the fruits of life too, that I'm not ignoring the fruits of life because, I'm going to lose them. Right. So anyway, yeah, that's the third sort of response, which is to embrace hedonism. I actually don't know anyone who's done that. Now, I've known people who played a lot of video games when they were undergoing cancer treatment because it's like they couldn't get out of bed. So like, what else are you going to do? You can't really do productive work, and you're in pain and you're on drugs that influence your ability to think. So yeah, just play some video games when you can. And then if you get better, then you can do the work, and that's okay too. But you know, so you have to think about that, you know. When I think about Ken Parker, that's what I think about is this guy really, it's clear to me he had a mission and he really cared about his work and he was really excited about that work. And I don't think it's any small coincidence that when he was unable to really continue that work, that's when his body finally gave out. It's like he couldn't, the energy of life wasn't going to be there anymore. So anyway, consider in your charity donating to that. We could take a look at that guitar too. It's kind of a slow week, and I'm not gonna go really long tonight because I have a couple of other things I want to do. It's not because I'm sick. That was one of the things with Scott Adams. People thought he was gonna die this week because he did a really, really short stream. Normally he streams for like an hour. He streamed for like 20 minutes, and he usually does like an extra stream for like his, I think locals or something, like his Patreon. I have a Patreon too, by the way. You can get some bonus books and stuff from the Patreon, and I will have a serial fiction thing coming out on Patreon for my patrons. That's coming down the pipe. I'm working on that when I can, but sometimes you have a lot going on. You guys know how it is. Let's hit that up. And he didn't do that. He's like, I have to turn this off. I haven't slept in 2 days because I'm in so much pain. So apparently he's okay, but it's something to think about. It's like, man, even when they're really ill, that loss would come as almost as a shock, It's kind of hard. Anyway, let me show you this guitar because I've been talking. I'll show you the guitar real quick. We'll plug it in too. Let's see here. Get in there. Hold on. There it goes. Get in there. Okay. We'll plug it in a second here. Let me show you the guitar so you can see it. And it's beautiful, sparkly green. Now you can, on stage, this is really green. It's like a really beautiful, sparkly green. And then my bright orange, it's actually a Fender strap, but like that bright orange strap, I think looks really great with it. So you have this fingerboard here. These are stainless steel frets. You never have to do anything with them, zero maintenance. They're glued on because the neck is wrapped in carbon fiber. You have these are Spurzl locking tuners. He didn't make that hardware. What's really cool, maybe you can see this, is there's no neck joint. The neck flows into the body. Let's see if you can really really see how this looks. It flows directly into the body, and it's really thin here. So the neck is the same all the way until you get to like the 24th fret, and then you run into this little edge of the cutout. And that's when you know you're at fret 22. It's like, boom, you hit that cutout, that's fret 22. You can go a little bit higher for fret 24, and there you go. This is all carved out on the back. It's all hollow here and here. And now I'm manufacturing a new backplate. So this is a temporary backplate right now because I need to make a new backplate for it. And that's an interesting process to try to fabricate that. But you have a little wheel here which you can use to adjust the tuning. There's a flat spring that activates this vibrato bridge, and you can tune it up or tune it down and fine tune the tension with that rather than doing a screwdriver in the springs like you have with the Leo Fender designed bridge. It's a really innovative system, but it lets this guitar just be like really thin. It is such a thin, light guitar. There's, the pickups are like the main thing that gives it weight, but it's also really balanced. So when you put it on, it just has this wonderful feel. It's just completely balanced. There's nothing to it. It's just such an easy instrument to play. These knobs aren't original, by the way. I'm going to turn on a brighter light. Maybe you can see a little better with the brighter light. Give me a second. All right, here we go. Little brighter light, little brighter today. Okay, so you can see just how like crazy carved it is. It has a Larry Fishman designed acoustic guitar pickup in the saddles. Really, really cool. And you can blend it all. I'll show you all the tones that you can do with it. Really fantastic guitar. It is made to shred. And it's one of these guitars that when you play it, I don't know if I have a pick here. it just makes things feel super easy. Like you can just, it just feels easier to play. It feels easier to play this guitar than almost any guitar I've ever played in my life. And that's pretty cool. I've been playing everything fingerstyle lately, so I don't even know where my picks are. But let me plug it in, and let's get some sounds going here. Let's see here. Plug this bad boy in. Demo some sounds. All right. Here. I'll turn off my synth pedal. Let's get this guy. See if we got everything here. Oh, maybe I don't have that. Oh, that's why. There we go. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Okay, let's talk about some of the cool tones that you can do on this beast. Absolutely amazing. Now, Ned Steinberger is another guy we'll talk about another time, but he's still alive. And he just came out with a new... Ned Steinberger invented the headless guitar. So, very, very innovative maker there, too. But the other one is Ken Parker because of everything that goes into this guitar. Absolutely phenomenal. If I had tons and tons and tons of money, I'd be trying to buy one of his arch tops, too, because they're incredible guitars. For now, I will settle with his electric guitar. Okay, so you have two switches. Just like on a, if you've played a Music Man JP6 or like a Music Man Majesty, it's kind of the same idea. Standard pickup selector here. Hold on, there we go. Neck, bridge, and then a single coil on each one to get that kind of stratty, throaty, maybe middle position Telecaster sound. Really, really cool. So standard there. You have a volume for the magnetic pickups right here. And then you have a tone for your magnetic pickups right here. Here is a switch that goes between magnetic pickups, the piezo, which is our acoustic guitar pickup, and then both, a blend. And you blend them by changing the volume here, and then this right here is a master volume that you can use to get. So you can get some really cool tones with the acoustic guitar, obviously. Let me get, there we go, sorry. Here, I have one that's set up just for acoustic guitar. I think that's a Metallica song. Yeah? Okay. You can get some cool acoustic guitar sounds there. Or you can get a really cool blend of these. So I'm going to have it in the middle position here. And I'm going to dial this back, and I'm going to have the neck pickup, and you can get some really good, very arch top kind of sounds. Oh, that's a beautiful tone. Listen to that. Getting some popping. I don't know if you're getting popping on your end. But that's some errors in the DAW. Absolutely incredible tones. I think that clicking's from the DAW. Some kind of little error here. Got some cool delay sounds there, though. Yeah. So you can get some really good, really cool tones. Or you can, same thing, you can blend this. There's like a little tone knob. I could dial the tone back on the acoustic guitar pickup and get... some cool surf sounds. So you just need like a little extra high end. You can blend it in and get just a little... Get a little high end. I really like to combine this neck pickup. This neck pickup here with the... I think you can get some really, really fantastic sounds. Let's get that on a... Let's get that on a swell patch here. This sounds cool. I'm going to restart the DAW to see if I can get rid of that sound. Just give me a second here. Kill the sound. But anyway, beautiful guitar, really special guitar. Unfortunately, they don't make them anymore. So I don't know if anyone will ever revive the brand or revive the design. I think it's one of the best electric guitar designs of all time. Came out way back in 1993. This one's from 1997. So we're coming up on 30 years. We're close to 30 years of this guitar here, being old, I guess. Very, very cool, though, that there hasn't been something that in terms of this ergonomics and the look, it just hasn't been equaled. Really amazing when I think about it. All right, let me ask the chat. Let's take a look at the chat. Let's see what we got here. Hey, David, have you read any of the Thomas Covenant books? If so, thoughts? I have videos on those. So, yes. I won't give the thoughts here because I have videos on them. Okay. Yeah, I never seen such unique design as when you first showed us the Parker Fly. Huh? Well, plugged. I need to maybe make sure that jack hasn't worn out over the years. You can also run this in stereo, by the way. Very cool. You can use a stereo splitter and run your acoustic guitar pickup to a different amp or a different input on your amp to different effects or whatever you want. And you can do it in stereo. So really, really very practically useful so that you're not running, for instance, if you really want the sound of that acoustic guitar, you can run it not through your regular rig. You can run it through like a different rig to get that acoustic guitar sound. There, you got rid of the... Maybe I'll play you a little bit of the stuff I've been working on. Let's take a look. Scott Adams literally live streamed from the ER a night or two ago. Oh my gosh, I missed that. I believe it though, because that's who he is. And people, oh, he's a workaholic. No, he has purpose. He believes his work has meaning and purpose, and therefore it's good to do it. And then he's probably, because he has those cats. He has cats because he's like, I'm not getting a lot of physical contact with people. Not that he has no friends, but because of the nature of cancer, I'm determined to get my book out next week. Awesome. When was the last stream you went over creating book titles in Photoshop? That's all I have to do at this point. It's been a while, but I do have a video on how to create great book text in Photoshop. I think that's what it is, how to create great book text in Photoshop. So a couple design principles for designing book text is there's two ways you can go. I generally tell people simpler is better. If you just had the title in a nice sans serif font, you really don't need more. If you look at the design of this is a really simple design, but it's very effective. Notice the first letters of the words are really big. Then you're fitting the other words kind of into the shape of those big letters. And the author name is just really standard, okay? If you were to have one that just had it in one size, you know, these are different size things, but they're the same font. I think this is Mason Serif. It's the font from World of Warcraft, actually. That's a World of Warcraft font. But it's a good looking font, and so, you know, I used it. Let's see if I have a simpler one. This one's pretty simple. Eyes on the walls. Notice all the letters are different sizes. That's to give you this feeling of unease. Things are not symmetrical. Things are weird, right? That's what that does. Afterglow, everything is one size. And I just put a little blur around it. Everything, I didn't do any different size letters or whatever. It's just, this is Industry Ink. I don't remember what font. Might be Futura. You can just use Futura for like sci-fi and nonfiction, and use something like Perpetua is free, and it's a really good fantasy font. So is Cinzel, but Cinzel's way overused, and most people use Cinzel Decorative really terribly. They like make every letter have a swoosh on it, and it just looks like crap. I have a Cinzel example somewhere. I'm sure I do. I think technically this is Cinzel. So this is Cinzel Decorative. Most people's, if they did Cinzel Decorative, it would look like crap. Notice we have C and S are big. The T on T is bigger than the rest of the letters. Okay. The of is smaller and the of is bold. Everything else is not bold. It is like normal font. Okay. The lens flares, the little flashy bits on the city, those are just lens flares that I rendered and rendered them on a black, just like a black image, and then set it to screen, and then it, or I did some with screen and some with color dodge to just get this effect of like something reflecting off of the letters. And then otherwise it's Cinzel. Only a couple of the letters are uppercase to give that swooshy look. Okay, you don't want to do too many of the swooshies or it starts to look really bad. So you just want to do a little bit of the swooshies, just a little bit of swooshies, and you're good. Okay. Here's a very old design, but it's an earlier one, and I did it for free in Inkscape. So I used free software for this one. I don't remember what font it is, but, you know, I just used path editing and turned it into an object and edited all the paths so that it would look like this. And I think it looks pretty cool, at least the font. So this was all done for free. This is like a really cheap cover. Even used free software. Anyway. For aesthetics, do you prefer lighter guitars? I know with books I prefer when they feel hefty in my hands. So lighter guitars are great because if you're gigging, trust me, the Les Paul, it's gonna feel heavy by the end of the night. I have a Les Paul, it's heavy, it feels heavy after a while. You can mitigate it with a larger strap. It actually will keep your posture good. So to me, a 10-pound guitar, it doesn't bother me. I was a tuba player forever, so heavy instruments have never bothered me that much, but you're going to feel it more than you will with like this guitar's maybe 5 pounds. It's very light. And there's one downside to light guitars, which is when I want to use the trem, when I want to use the vibrato, the whole guitar likes to move. So you have to kind of brace your arm on it. Yeah, okay. Really cool tones. It's another. I could play you a little bit of something else. With the acoustic pickup in there, you probably could just have that guitar and be set forever. Yeah. There's been guys who switched to playing. There's a version of this out there called the Concert that's just set up for playing acoustic guitar, and it sounds amazing plugged in. It's like a Godin, you know, but with all the space age stuff, so it's super light. What's really cool about this too is like you could even just not tune it. Like a lot of times you detune when you go on a plane. Nah, you can take it out at 10,000 feet and it's still in tune. Like it's because of how stiff it is. It doesn't react to things. It's just a really wonderful instrument. Random thought, but not looking forward to the day old billionaires start crashing out when they realize no amount of money will stave off the inevitability of death. Yeah, that's the Brian Johnson thing, but I think Brian Johnson has a somewhat good mindset about it, which is like, I'm choosing my health. I'm choosing to be healthy. And I think that makes a difference versus like, I'm trying to avoid dying, but that is what he's doing. Sorry if I'm derailing, but I'm new. I saw your stay in your lane video after it was in my recommended and resonated with me. I'm in a similar creative situation. Just want to say thank you. Well, you're welcome. Maybe we could play some new material that I've been working on. Some of the solo material. It's not all done, but it's interesting. I'd probably play it with this tone. I like this tone for it. Like right here. Mistakes. sorry. Trying to remember everything. That's it. D major. Right here. And then I have some development material there. So I'm not sure where we'll go with that material. Couple mistakes because I haven't, like, I'm still writing it, so I'm like, wait, what chord do I go to next? You know, can I, this, there it is. I want to do C major 7 again. We can do, D major. Do this and then E7, and then what do? We can go to A minor. I kind of want to speed the whole thing up. I want it to feel really allegro. I went to E7. We should really go to B7. A little better. Yeah. Hey David, I played acoustic for a while and just bought my first electric guitar. How do you suggest a young person learns about music history, guitar culture through the 1900s to today? Probably YouTube is a really good resource. There's a lot of information. A lot of people have opinions, including me. That's a good way. If you're trying to learn technique, a method book is really good. An electric guitar method book, you could just do the Mel Bay methods, are actually really good and will actually teach you the beginnings of what a lot of jazz players call chord melody, which is being able to improvise accompaniment, kit accompaniment below your melodies, which is a lot of, I'll do some chord melody in a minute from like a new piece. You can get a little demo with maybe that's like going to be movement 1. I got like a movement 3, and a movement 4. Movement 4 is like all. Yeah, some stuff like that. I really like the tone for this. I wrote most of it on an archtop, so I may make it like an archtop song, but it sounds really good on this with this kind of combination. And what's cool is you can always I'm actually blowing up my interface because this guitar has so much output on it. That's Hitor Villalobos right there. Right. But yeah, I can get some really good sounds here. Make movement 2 be some I came up with this the other day after I found out Ken died, so it just made me think of him. It's kind of falling, things kind of falling down. And then you can go here. We can do the same thing. Need to go to E instead of A. And then like that. Or we can do a little extra in there. It's kind of A9 feeling. We can actually do something really weird here too. We can do go to C major, and then we can go actually to a D, major 7, A minor, E minor. Oh, no, I want F sharp. No, what do I want? B. Back to A. Now, one of the things about a piezo pickup, it picks up all the noise, so you can add in some stuff like that, do something really weird. I was going to do another movement that incorporated some of these swells. Grab a little swells patch here, something like this, so that we could really do some cool swells, maybe an A. Too loud. There we go. That's a cool one. We'll make something like that movement too. That's all improvised. So there we go. All right. That's as much as I told my wife I would only do 45 minutes to an hour. I've gone longer than that. So that's it for today. We'll talk about death a little bit. Play some music. Music dies as you play it. It lives. It's born. It lives. And then it dies away. Oh, I didn't even play movement 3. Let's get this. I don't know. I'll come up with some developments there. Anyway, I'll come up with some stuff there. Little preview of what's going on later. So I think that's it for today. I'll check you all next time. Not too much other news to talk about this week anyway, so, same stuff that we always see. There's some publishing drama. I'll maybe make a separate video about that. Basically, a publisher decided to take all of an author's royalties because he said something very, very slightly off color years before online. Standard cancel mob, but they went back on it after everybody called them out on him, and they got a massive shitstorm of hate. So that's good. Things kind of rectifying back to where they needed to be, which is not a publisher taking all of an author's royalties and donating them to charity for their own tax write-off because there's a cancel mob online. So anyway, that's it. I'll check you all next time. Have a great, great day. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, all that good stuff. I will link the Ken Parker's GoFundMe for his family. So, if you are feeling charitable, then that is then that's going to be something that I think would be really great to help him out with, because he was independent. It wasn't like he had a corporate job. Burial expenses by themselves can be very expensive, and you are usually waiting a long time before you get any compensation from a life insurance claim. You have to pay the burial expenses pretty much up front. I've known that from having to deal with it a couple times. So if you are feeling charitable, then that's a great thing to do. Patreon, you're going to have access to a new story. I need to publish part 2 of the story. Let me find it. Patreon. Here's the Patreon. Check it out. And then, of course, I'll maybe start recording some of this stuff, and you can get the beta version of the Sonata for electric guitar. And maybe I'll play for you a little bit as we say farewell. I'll play some of that movement again, and you can enjoy it and kind of see what's going to go on, what's coming down the pipe in terms of music stuff, which is going to be different from the super ambient stuff that I've been doing before. Okay, so have a great one, and I'll see you all next time.